Last night, I received a message from a 45-year-old woman that left me unable to sleep. She was crying, sending the message from the bathroom of her home, shattered after discovering that the man she had envisioned a future with for the past 3 years still maintained active profiles on dating apps. Her question struck me deeply. How could I, an intelligent, accomplished woman with a deep understanding of psychology and relationships, spend 3 years begging for scraps of affection from someone who never saw me as more than a temporary option? The answer to that question challenges nearly everything we've been taught about how men love. What I'm about to share goes against decades of romantic advice that have left millions of intelligent women stuck in emotionally draining but never truly fulfilling relationships. Because there is a profound neurological distinction between a man who claims to love you and one who is genuinely emotionally bonded to you. And that distinction is anything but subtle. It doesn't require decoding, guessing, or years of therapy to recognize. This difference is clear. It's observable, measurable, and undeniable. Yet we've been conditioned to overlook it, to accept watered-down versions of love, and to mistake emotional instability as a normal part of modern relationships. After spending 15 years working with women worn out by one-sided emotional labor, I've seen a pattern emerge that led me to a bold realization. Most mature women don't need therapy to learn how to love better. They need neuroscientific insight to recognize when they're actually being loved. Here's the truth few are willing to say out loud. We've normalized male behavior that is fundamentally incompatible with deep emotional intimacy. We've brushed off their inconsistency as just how men are, labeled their hesitation as fear of commitment, and chalked up their lack of emotional presence to simple gender differences. But once you understand how an emotionally bonded male brain truly functions, it becomes painfully clear those are just sophisticated justifications for a hard reality. He's simply not that emotionally invested. What I'm about to share reshaped everything I thought I knew about relationships, and it has safeguarded the mental well-being of hundreds of women. Neuroscience has shown us something profound. When a person forms a deep emotional bond, their brain physically rewires. This isn't poetic metaphor or romantic fantasy. It's hard science. Neural pathways establish new connections. Brain chemistry undergoes lasting changes. And these shifts result in clear, consistent behaviors that simply cannot be faked over time. A man who is truly emotionally attached simply cannot act indifferent. His nervous system won't allow it. He can't be inconsistent because being out of alignment with you triggers real cognitive dissonance. He can't keep you in the dark because his brain instinctively seeks security and clarity when it comes to you. So if you find yourself constantly trying to interpret his behavior, living in a loop of hope followed by disappointment, and feeling mentally unsettled because you're unsure of your place in his life, here's something essential you need to know. It's not that your intuition is failing you. You're just with someone whose brain hasn't formed a deep emotional connection to you, regardless of what he says. And that leads us to a difficult truth that many avoid. Mature women, particularly those who've been repeatedly let down, often build a dangerous tolerance for emotional mediocrity. These women become experts at finding hope in mere crumbs, interpreting contradictions as signs of progress, and rationalizing behaviors their instincts clearly reject. This adaptability, which once helped them survive toxic relationships, eventually becomes their greatest barrier when true love finally arrives, because their brains have been conditioned to settle for so little that they no longer recognize how to receive what truly fulfills them. But here's the turning point that changes everything. When a man is genuinely emotionally attached, there are 10 specific neurological signs that emerge. These signs are impossible to hide, fake, or misinterpret. Understanding these patterns doesn't make you controlling or demanding. It makes you informed, empowered, and unwilling to accept anything less than genuine emotional connection.
The first sign I call complete neurological consistency. A man who is truly emotionally attached to you is predictable, not because he's dull, but because his brain has formed reward pathways directly connected to your emotional well-being. He keeps his promises because breaking them causes genuine physical discomfort. He calls when he says he will because his brain's reward system lights up the moment he meets your expectations. This reliability doesn't fluctuate with his mood, isn't shaken by work stress, and remains unaffected by outside distractions. It's a neurological constant. His prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning and self-control, is fully aligned with maintaining the stability of your relationship. He doesn't emotionally withdraw after physical intimacy because sex doesn't diminish his commitment. Rather, it triggers oxytocin release, strengthening the emotional bond between you. His mood remains steady because his brain identifies the relationship as a sanctuary of emotional safety. He won't leave you hanging for days without a response, as communicating with you has become a neurological necessity rather than a mere social duty. Here's an interesting insight I've noticed. Countless women who have endured emotionally unstable relationships for years often find it hard to trust this kind of consistency when it finally appears. Their nervous system, conditioned to remain on high alert, mistakes peace for suspicion, stability for boredom, and security for a lack of passion. We have become so accustomed to confusing emotional chaos with romantic intensity that when genuine calm finally arrives, the brain struggles to process it. Yet this stability is not the absence of passion, it is mature passion. It is not a lack of feeling, but rather regulated feeling. It is not a deficiency of love, but love that has evolved beyond mere survival into true growth. The second manifestation I call complete identity integration. A man who is truly emotionally attached doesn't separate his life into moments with you and without you. Your presence becomes an essential part of his self-concept, so much so that including you in every significant aspect of his life isn't a deliberate choice. It's a natural extension of how he sees the world. He introduces you to his family not simply because it's expected after some time, but because he genuinely cannot imagine important moments without you by his side.
He includes you in his circle of friends not to impress others, but because his brain has deeply intertwined your identity with his own, so much so that excluding you would take deliberate mental effort. This phenomenon is known in neurophysiology as the fusion of mental representations. Your presence isn't confined to the romantic part of his mind. Instead, you hold an active role in his career goals, family choices, future plans, creative endeavors, and personal growth. Now comes the revolutionary part. This process doesn't depend on how long the relationship has lasted, but rather on the chemical depth of the emotional bond. I've worked with men who, even after years, treated their partner like a temporary companion, and others who, after only a few months, had fully integrated the woman into their identity. What determines this integration isn't time, it's the intensity of the neurological connection. Once this integration happens, it becomes irreversible. It's not something that can be simply switched on or off. It becomes a fundamental part of his core mental architecture. The third manifestation shatters one of the most harmful myths about male psychology. A man's attitude toward commitment undergoes a profound transformation. Society has long told us that men naturally resist commitment, that they're genetically wired to avoid exclusivity, and that fear of commitment is inherently male. But this is only partially true, and it's a dangerously misleading belief.
A man avoids commitment only when he is uncertain about his feelings or doesn't see the woman as a vital part of his future. But when the emotional bond runs deep, the experience is quite the opposite of what many women endure. Commitment transforms into an urgent emotional necessity, not a heavy social obligation. His brain longs for safety, clarity, and exclusivity because ambiguity triggers genuine cognitive discomfort. He doesn't shy away from conversations about the relationship's future. Instead, he actively pursues them. He isn't afraid of definitions. In fact, he longs for them. Labels don't feel like a burden. They bring him neurological calm.
Exclusivity isn't seen as a restriction, but as freedom from uncertainty. This happens because deep emotional bonding activates what neuroscientists call the need for cognitive closure. Just as the brain craves solutions to complex problems, it requires clarity in the relationship. Ambivalence becomes neurologically uncomfortable and unwelcome. When women tell me, he says he loves me but avoids talking about the future, or he says I'm special but won't define the relationship, or he says I matter yet resists exclusivity, the truth becomes clear. His words and actions reveal someone who hasn't formed a deep emotional bond, no matter what feelings he might express on the surface. The fourth manifestation may be the most revealing: spontaneous emotional transparency. This is where the gap between surface-level interest and genuine connection becomes unmistakably clear. A man who is truly emotionally bonded expands his emotional vocabulary, and he does this only with you. It's not that men are naturally emotionally closed off. Many suppress their feelings out of fear of rejection, judgment, or losing control. But a deep bond breaks down these walls. His brain recognizes you and your relationship as a completely safe space. He expresses his feelings directly, clearly, and specifically because being emotionally vulnerable with you feels natural, even enjoyable. You don't have to dig for his emotions like an archaeologist. There's no need to interpret silence, tone, or ambiguous signals. His honesty flows effortlessly because his nervous system is fully at ease in your presence. But there's even more. He cultivates a genuine curiosity about your emotional world. He doesn't ask how you're doing out of habit or obligation, but because your feelings directly impact his own. This reflects what neuroscience calls specific neurological empathy. Your pain causes him real physical discomfort, while your joy activates his brain's reward system. He becomes so emotionally attuned to you that he often senses how you feel before you even say a word, not because he's psychic, but because his brain has become finely tuned to your micro-expressions, shifts in energy, and subtle behavioral cues.
The fifth quality is something mature women especially appreciate after enduring toxic relationships: deeply rooted, unconditional respect. And by respect, I don't just mean basic politeness. I mean something far more profound. Your emotional well-being becomes a neurological priority for him. This means that even during conflict, frustration, or moments of misunderstanding, his behavior remains consistently respectful. It's not a matter of conscious self-control, it's an ingrained neurological response. He doesn't resort to sarcasm to manipulate, use silence as punishment, or belittle you to boost himself. Instead, his prefrontal cortex actively regulates any destructive impulses, because causing you pain triggers genuine discomfort in him, almost as if he were hurting himself. This respect also reveals itself in how he speaks about you when you're not around, how he manages conflicts in front of others, and how he responds to criticism directed at you. He defends you not out of obligation, but because his brain interprets any attack on you as an attack on himself. I've noticed something remarkable. Men who are deeply emotionally bonded develop a psychological shield around their partner. This isn't toxic possessiveness, rather it's an instinctive neurological defense mechanism. His brain views your emotional well-being as integral to his own sense of safety. The sixth manifestation is truly beautiful: closeness without any agenda. This marks one of the clearest distinctions between superficial attraction and genuine emotional bonding. A man with only shallow interest seeks your company for specific reasons: fun, sex, validation, or to escape loneliness. But a man who is emotionally bonded craves your presence because his nervous system calms and regulates itself when you're near. You don't have to be constantly cheerful, entertain him, or play the role of the perfect hostess or intellectual muse. To his brain, simply being near you brings deep neurological well-being. He seeks you out when he's tired because he genuinely rests with you, turns to you when he's stressed because his cortisol levels drop in your presence, and shares his happiness with you because his dopamine rises alongside yours. It's not about what you do, but about what you represent to his nervous system. This closeness isn't unhealthy dependence, it's a healthy emotional reciprocity. His life doesn't collapse without you, but it's unquestionably richer and fuller because of you. And the most remarkable part? The more time he spends with you, the more he desires your presence. There's no sense of saturation or boredom. Instead, closeness creates an ever-growing capacity for even more closeness.
The seventh quality is psychologically fascinating: spontaneous mental presence. He thinks of you unexpectedly throughout the day, without any particular reason or trigger. When he sees something that would make you laugh, he immediately wants to share it with you. If he overhears a conversation he knows you'd find interesting, he's already planning how to tell you about it. His brain has formed automatic associations between you and countless everyday stimuli. This isn't obsession, it's cognitive integration. Because of the deep emotional bond, your presence expands exponentially within his mental landscape. You don't just occupy a romantic corner of his mind. You play an active role across multiple neural centers: memory, planning, creative thinking, decision-making, and emotional processing. He doesn't think of you only when he's lonely or bored. Your image surfaces in his consciousness while he's working, exercising, socializing, or even focusing on complex tasks. You've become an integral part of his inner dialogue. The eighth manifestation shifts the relationship's power dynamic naturally. He includes you in his decision-making, not out of dependence or loss of independence, but because your perspective has become an integral part of his thought process. Your voice, your judgment, and your unique wisdom are deeply internalized. When faced with important choices, he instinctively asks himself, "What would she think about this? How would it impact our lives? What might she notice that I'm overlooking?" He seeks your input on professional matters because he genuinely respects your intelligence. He relies on your emotional insight when navigating family conflicts, trusting your understanding completely. He plans the future with you because he simply cannot envision making important decisions without factoring in your well-being and opinion. This isn't a loss of his independence. Rather, it's a move toward a mature, mutual connection. You're no longer just his partner. You've become an essential part of his emotional and intellectual operating system. This integration extends even to decisions that don't directly involve you, as his brain no longer processes life as separate from yours. The ninth manifestation is tangible and measurable. You are a genuine priority, not just a convenient option. This becomes evident in how he manages his time, energy, attention, and resources. He doesn't only reach out when it suits him or when other plans fall through. He doesn't push you aside for more exciting opportunities. Nor does he make you feel like you're competing with his work, friends, hobbies, or family for his attention. His brain has reorganized its value system, placing you at the very top. This doesn't mean he neglects other responsibilities, but when faced with limited time and energy, he instinctively prioritizes you. He stays by your side when you're unwell, even if important commitments await, because your vulnerability awakens his deepest protective instincts. He celebrates your professional successes, even during his own struggles, as your joy activates his reward system. He offers you his best time, even when emotionally drained, because being with you replenishes his spirit. This isn't a sacrifice. It's a natural emotional investment. His brain has learned to equate your happiness with his own well-being. Supporting your joy is neurologically the same as nurturing himself. The 10th and most profound manifestation is what I call mutual evolutionary inspiration. Your relationship inspires him to become the best version of himself, just as he inspires the same in you. This growth isn't forced or exhausting, like in toxic dynamics, where one partner bends over backward to be enough. Instead, it's a natural, organic expansion that happens when secure love unlocks the authentic potential within both of you. In his presence, you feel braver in chasing your dreams, sharper because he truly values your intellect, and more generous as his love replenishes your inner reserves. You become more fully yourself, free from the need to perform or prove your worth. Likewise, he experiences this same personal growth, not through effort or struggle, but because deep love creates a neurological environment where the best version of each person naturally emerges.
It's as if the brain, once it truly feels safe, can finally shift its focus from mere survival to genuine growth. When these 10 neurological patterns are present in a relationship, you're experiencing something far deeper than simple infatuation. You're living what modern psychology defines as optimized, secure attachment in adulthood, the most mature, nurturing, and developmentally enriching form of emotional connection possible between two people. The benefits extend far beyond just romantic fulfillment. Your mental health improves as chronic uncertainty fades away. Your immune system strengthens because the stress of relationship turmoil lifts. Your creativity flourishes since your energy is no longer drained by fear. And your resilience grows, enabling you to face life's challenges from a place of emotional stability. But if, after learning about these 10 patterns, you realize they're missing from your relationship, that you never had them or have been waiting for them in vain, there's an important truth to grasp that could transform your emotional world. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you.
Deep emotional bonding cannot be forced, negotiated, or coaxed into existence through endless patience with someone who is neurologically unavailable. You can't love someone enough to make them become the person you need. You can't give so much that their capacity for connection suddenly awakens. And you can't be perfect enough for their brain to finally prioritize you. Sometimes the problem isn't that you don't deserve that kind of love. Sometimes it's that you've invested your most precious emotional energy in people who simply cannot return it, no matter how good their intentions or how beautiful their words. We've mistaken emotional pressure for depth, complexity for genuine passion, and fear of commitment for love. We've accepted emotional highs and lows as normal because we've forgotten what true safety feels like. Emotional maturity grants us something invaluable, something younger women often haven't yet developed: the neurological ability to distinguish between what excites us briefly and what truly nourishes us over time. It allows us to recognize not just what we want, but what we genuinely need to thrive. Every mature woman deserves a love that affirms her inner worth every single day, not one that constantly makes her question herself. She deserves emotional security that soothes her nervous system, not chronic anxiety disguised as passion. She deserves to be consciously chosen and joyfully celebrated, not merely tolerated until something better comes along. The kind of love reflected in these 10 neurological patterns isn't a romantic fantasy. It's real, it's possible, and it's available to every woman brave enough to refuse anything less than what her mind, heart, and future truly need to thrive. Your only task is to recognize these patterns when they show up, and to value yourself enough to move toward them, even if it means walking away from anything that offers less than you deserve.